Hey, hello, welcome. This is going to be an impromptu video. I don't expect anyone necessarily to join, but if anyone finds their way in, yay, all the merrier. I have a thought on my mind about what's going to play out for the 2020s, and I want to document it. I want people to hear what I think. It may be right, it may be wrong, but I posted a lot on Twitter over the last couple of days, and there's fundamentally three directions everything goes. Either Brent Johnson's idea is correct and the global margin call will suck all value into the US dollar, or gold bugs will prevail, Peter Schiff, so on and so forth, that fiat will fail and we'll go back to a gold back currency. And then there's the third option, which I thought of, and it's probably the case that other people have thought of it as well, that MMT will fundamentally establish US dollar being pegged, where if the value of the dollar increases, the Treasury prints. If the value of the dollar decreases, they have Fed policies which facilitate the destruction of value, which is achieved either by the repayment of debts or the allowance for a debt to default. And that is basically the mechanic for which I see MMT playing out. Obviously, there's other factors that go into the equations, particularly the value of consumer staples. If they inflate, the relative value of the dollar, the purchasing power of the dollar decreases. So people are able to purchase less product, less goods, less services. And this is complicated economic theory, economic policy that anyone at the government level that attempts to make choices to achieve a particular result is contemplating. It's very, very complicated beyond my expertise, but I have my thoughts, and those are the three possible scenarios that I see playing out over the next couple of years, throughout pretty much the entirety of this decade, to see how this experiment plays out. Wholeheartedly, it's an experiment. This type of monetary policy has never been tried at this scale. We're talking about the U.S. government. We're talking about the global reserve currency. So, holy crap, it's a goddamn experiment with the global reserve currency. And fascinatingly, there is no other option. There is no other choice. They are overwhelmingly in a corner, backed into a corner. This is the bubble of all time. The amount of debt outstanding globally there's no words. It's all inspiring. A quadrillion dollars. Right now they've extended the swap lines such that central banks around the world could post treasuries and to get dollars to hopefully disseminate those dollars to their local sovereign borrowers, the borrowers relative to a particular region that consume and interact with that respective central bank. And these are all efforts to get dollars to where dollar-denominated debts are experiencing a liquidity issue. They have a margin call shortfall, or they have to, in order to pay the premiums on debts, they need dollars. So, the question remains, is it even possible? And to disseminate the amount of dollars required to stabilize the entire equation, sure as hell, the government is going to try. And they're going to try really hard. And they've pulled out every four-letter acronym they possibly can at the Fed level, and the SPVs, the special purpose vehicles, to do it, to try. If it fails, gold wins. If it succeeds, MMT works. I think that the only solution, overwhelmingly, from a retail investor, from a general public person, is to be diversified, and as diversified as possible. You want precious metals, you want gold, you want silver. If fiat falls apart, that becomes the currency, and that is going to increase in value to incredible proportions relative to the value of the fiat itself. If MMT works, this whole system stabilizes. Equities are going to inflate. Hopefully, they inflate to such a degree that when they get converted back to dollars, the purchasing power of the dollars is not attempting to purchase inflated goods and services that have overinflated in price relative to the dollar. The goal is hopefully the equities inflate more in value than the price of goods and services themselves inflate. So that goes back to me talking about the meaning of, or the use of, the word inflation. Inflation is relative to something in particular. Just saying the word inflation doesn't mean much unless it's applied to a specific thing, for lack of a better word. So anyway, one of the most wonderful ways to diversify is cryptocurrencies. Countless people nowadays are. Raoul Pal says it's an a call option on the future. I mean, fundamentally, if the system fails, or if cryptocurrency just is better, which it is in so many regards, then it's the best bet of the century. Now, an interesting thing that has occurred and has been occurring. The president talks about infrastructure bills, infrastructure plans, infrastructure spending. Now, this is perfectly consistent with something that I've talked about quite a lot, tweeted about, talked about, thought about, is that the infrastructure in the United States is overwhelmingly dilapidated, delinquent, deficient, all those fancy words. Now, they spend $2 trillion, they print $2 trillion, they print $2 trillion. That means the Fed has a capacity to leverage $20 trillion. Can you imagine if the purchasing power of the dollar remains relatively unchanged and they get away with printing $2 trillion, having a leveraged $20 trillion, and they somehow execute that kind of infrastructure project? We reshape America. So in theory, I would imagine most people want MMT to somehow succeed. It has scary implications with regard to full faith and credit, trust. If the federal government can print whatever they want, why the hell are we paying taxes? So it gets complicated, and that's where economic theory, the theorists come in. Like, why do people pay taxes? Because they believe taxes have meaning and purpose, and they contribute to the system. But if the government can print whatever they want, what the hell is incentivizing people to try and continue to pay taxes? To stabilize the whole system if people no longer believe that they're doing has a purpose and a reason. So, infrastructure spending. Oil is toast, unless somehow there's a geopolitical concession that between Russia and Saudi Arabia at this point that facilitates a decrease in global production of oil. There's no way for the price to go up. You're talking of a global commodity that has sustained the value of the dollar for the last 50 years, 71, give or take. So everything's changing. Understatement of the decade. We come out of this, however long it takes, a year, 2, 3, nothing at all will be the same. Fundamentally changed across the board. Every aspect of society that I could possibly think of will be changed. So if oil's done and the price is done, it makes it not profitable for the United States to produce oil in any regard. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means we need an alternative system of energy. Because why the hell are we going to purchase oil if every means or every viable potential business for us to produce oil has just gone bankrupt? Why the hell are we going to continue using oil? So theoretically, an infrastructure bill, why the hell are we going to build out the most epic critical materials mining industry in this country? All the people that are employed right now for oil production, why don't we employ them to build out critical material mining and that type of infrastructure, which will require associated employment? See where I'm heading with this. We all see what the heck the potential is for electric vehicles. Gasoline vehicles are stupid. It's old. It reminds me of, like, from an engineer perspective, why the hell are we using old software? Why the hell is people still use dial-up modems? What's the matter with this thought that people cling to the old because they're afraid of change? Jump in a electric vehicle, even if it's a Chevy or whatever, Chevy Bolt. But dare I say, you jump in a Tesla, you're never going to drive a gasoline car again. Period. It's like going from a flip phone to a brand new iPhone. It makes a gasoline vehicle seem stupid. It's just ridiculous. A ridiculous technology. It's ancient. So, in theory, if 30%, the Federal Reserve is calling for 30% of America to be unemployed in the next 6 months. So, if we need infrastructure, we need employment. Doesn't it make sense to nationalize employment, print a shitload of money, build out the most epic infrastructure projects in the history of the world, and radically transform the country? As controversial as the president is, if he did that, he would go down in history, and that is consistent with, quote unquote, his relative narcissism. That would be a historic move. He would go down in history as performing the most historic move in history. So, frankly, if you position yourself well enough for the dollar to go to the moon, for the dollar to collapse, or for MMT to work, that's the best bet. That's the best play. Position yourself well, be diversified. My recommendation is to be diversified. I can't say what to do. I can only say what I do. I am diversified. Be diversified. Protect yourself. Protect your family. Try and make the smartest decisions possible. I'll keep talking about these topics, but sometimes there's a fair amount of anxiety going around. So talking about these topics is a way for me to vent. It allows me to process what is going on, share my thoughts and ideas, document them in many regards. Hopefully help some people come up with their own thoughts and ideas and attempt to understand the implications of what's going on. So keep doing what you're doing. Reach out to me. Ask some questions. I'll talk what's on my mind, but I'm very happy to talk about what's on everyone's mind, be it cryptocurrency, be it equities, be it politics in some regards, definitely economic policy, the economy, because this affects us all. And we all have opinions and thoughts, and we deserve to share them and get feedback and have conversation. So whenever anyone gets to see this, I wish you all a wonderful day. I'll be around. Cheers.